For years I made sure to remember every birthday, every anniversary, every little milestone. But when I turned 70, not one call came. Not from my sons, my sisters, or my grandchildren. Not a single one. There I was, sitting in my own home, with nothing but a slice of cake I bought for myself. No one remembered. No one even cared enough to pick up the phone. It wasn't just the silence that hurt. It was the realization that I had been forgotten. Thank you for being here with me today, and for being part of this community. If you believe in the power of a woman knowing her own worth and demanding its value, you are in the right place. And I'm so grateful you're listening to my story now. It's not always easy to talk about something so personal, but I know I'm not the only one who has ever felt invisible, especially when it's the ones you love who forget you. Now I'm curious, where are you watching from? I'd love to know. And if any part of my story speaks to you, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been overlooked by those you love? Have you ever felt like you've given all you can, only to be left alone when you needed them the most? Drop your story in the comments below. Let's share our truths together. I'm 80 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I've spent my life giving. I was the one who cooked for holidays, I sent gifts, I wrote letters. It was always me, making sure everyone felt loved. I'd stay up late, wrapping presents, baking cakes, and planning family dinners. No matter what, I always showed up. I wanted them to know I cared, that they mattered to me. My sons, well, they're good men. They've always been my pride and joy, even when they were running around causing trouble as kids. They grew up to have their own families, but it never stopped me from being there for them, even when they were too busy to call. Then there's my sisters, who I've always felt a special bond with. We've shared memories, laughter, tears, and my grandchildren. They were my joy. I loved watching them grow, giving them advice, sharing stories from my own life. I gave so much of myself, because that's what you do as a mother, a grandmother, a sister. I thought I was doing what a mother, a grandmother, and a sister should do. But somewhere along the way, it seemed they forgot about me. Maybe it was gradual, maybe it was something I didn't see at first. But that emptiness I felt when I sat there on my birthday alone, that was the truth I had been ignoring. It wasn't just the cake or the empty phone, it was the realization that no one remembered how much I'd given, how much I had sacrificed, just to see them smile. My 80th birthday arrived. I bought myself a little cake, sat by the window, waiting. The phone never rang. I remember staring out at the quiet street, hoping for a call, a message, anything. But the silence was all I got. It was a silence I hadn't known before, one that settled deep in my bones, heavier than any birthday I'd ever had. I'd spent so many years calling, sending cards, making sure everyone felt special on their birthdays, but that day, not a single one of them thought to pick up the phone. The house felt so still, too still. There was no laughter echoing through the halls, no chatter over dinner, no one rushing to see me or give me a hug. It was just me, sitting alone with a slice of cake I bought for myself and the stillness of my own thoughts. It should have been a joyous day, a celebration of everything I had done for my family. But instead, it felt like a lifetime of giving was reduced to nothing. I cut a slice of that cake, chewing slowly, almost like I was savoring the emptiness in the air. It wasn't the cake that left a bad taste in my mouth. It was the realization that after everything, I was nothing more than an afterthought. I sat there, alone, wondering what had happened. Why hadn't they called? Was I really so unimportant? The weight of it all pressed on me, deeper than I wanted to admit. It wasn't just the silence, it was the truth that was buried in it. That day, I had to face something I never wanted to. After all these years of giving, I was left with nothing but an empty room and a quiet heart. I gave my all, year after year. Every birthday, every holiday, every special occasion, I was the one who made sure no one felt alone. I'd plan dinners, I'd send gifts, I'd write long letters filled with love and advice. I thought I was building something that would last. I thought I was creating a foundation for my family, a foundation built on love and memory. But on that day, as I sat there alone, I realized something that hurt more than any words could say. I had been invisible all along. It's a strange feeling, to realize that everything you've done, all the time you've spent, is forgotten. The things that once mattered so much to them, my little gestures, my presence in their lives, they no longer even registered. I spent years loving them, thinking that love would be returned, that my efforts would count for something when I needed it most. But I was wrong. I was sitting in that quiet room, surrounded by the emptiness I had filled for so long, and it hit me all at once. I was invisible. No one remembered me. No one saw me. Was I not enough? Had I been forgotten in the blink of an eye? My mind raced with those questions, and my heart felt heavy with the weight of them. I had been there for every one of them, through the good times and the bad, always giving, always showing up. But now, my calls went unanswered. My messages were left unread. I wasn't even worth a simple happy birthday. That thought sat with me, like a stone in my chest. They had all moved on, leaving me behind, as if I was nothing more than a shadow in their lives. It felt like I didn't matter anymore. Not to the ones I loved most. It hurt more than I could explain. It wasn't just the fact that I was alone on my birthday. It was that, after all the love I had given, I was now nothing but a memory to them, fading away without a trace. There I was, sitting in my own world of loneliness and confusion, trying to make sense of what had just happened, and the house felt quieter than ever. The days stretched on, each one just like the last, and I couldn't shake the feeling of being forgotten. I didn't know how to fill the empty space in my heart. I spent hours sitting in my favorite chair by the window, staring out at the street, wondering if I was ever really as important to them as I thought I was. But then, one evening, Sarah, my youngest granddaughter, came to me. She'd always been the bright one in the family, the one who would call me just to say, "I love you," the one who used to laugh at my silly jokes. I didn't expect her that day, but when I saw her standing in the doorway, something inside me shifted. She wasn't the one I thought would notice, but she did. She had been watching me, even when I didn't know it. She sat beside me, quietly, just for a moment, before she spoke. "Grandma, I know how much you care for them," she said softly. "They should see you for who you are. You've always done so much for everyone, and they need to realize it." Her words hung in the air, like a breath of fresh air in a room that had felt suffocating. Those simple words struck me in a way I hadn't expected. For so long, I'd been telling myself that maybe I was just being foolish, that I was overreacting. But Sarah, she reminded me of something important. She reminded me that I wasn't the problem. I had given everything I had to those I loved, and it wasn't wrong to expect respect, to expect love in return. Her words lit something inside me. Something I hadn't felt in a long time, hope. "You don't have to take this, Grandma," she said. "You don't have to keep giving to people who don't see you. You've given enough. Now it's time to stand up for yourself." And just like that, Sarah became my ally, my little spark of strength in the dark. She didn't know it at the time, but in that moment she gave me the courage I needed to take action. She reminded me that I was worth more than the way I had been treated. Her voice was a gentle push, but it was all I needed. I knew then that I couldn't sit back any longer, that I had to stand up for myself. I had to do what was right for me, no matter how hard it was, and I promised myself that I would. Sarah gave me the strength I had forgotten I had. In that quiet moment, I felt the first glimmer of hope again. The next morning, I woke up early, earlier than I usually would. The house was still quiet, and for a moment, I almost let myself fall back into the sadness that had become my constant companion. But then I thought about Sarah's words, and I knew I couldn't stay there. I couldn't keep living in the shadows of my family's indifference. I had to do something for myself. My mind was set, and there was no turning back. I called my lawyer. My hands trembled as I dialed the number, but I was determined. It had been a while since I'd seen him, and I had never imagined I'd be calling him for something like this. I had always believed that family was everything. But now, I was learning that family didn't always come through. And if they wouldn't see me, if they wouldn't treat me with the love and respect I deserved, then I had to take control of what I still could. I could still hear Sarah's voice in my head, urging me to stand up for myself. It wasn't just about the money. It wasn't about being spiteful. It was about not being forgotten. I had given my life to these people, and they hadn't even thought to pick up the phone. I wasn't going to let that be my legacy. I was going to make sure that when I was gone, they remembered me for who I really was. Not the person who gave endlessly, without a thought for herself. When I arrived at the lawyer's office, I felt a mixture of fear and relief. My heart pounded in my chest as I sat down across from him. He looked at me, almost as if he knew something was different, and asked, "What can I do for you today, Miss Last Name?" I took a deep breath and said, "I need to change my will." I could see the surprise in his eyes, but he didn't say anything. He just nodded and started pulling the necessary paperwork. And as he handed me those papers, as I read through the words, I realized something. This wasn't about anger. It wasn't about revenge. It was about clarity. Clarity that I deserved more. Clarity that my love for them was not a weakness, and that my worth was not defined by how they treated me. And it was in that moment that I knew I was doing the right thing. I signed the papers with a steady hand, though my heart was racing. It felt like a weight had been lifted, and yet, I also felt a quiet sadness. How had it come to this? But there was no turning back. As I looked at the lawyer, I said, "I don't want to leave anything to those who couldn't even bother to pick up the phone. They can't have my legacy." And I meant it. It wasn't a decision I made lightly, but I knew I had to do it. I wasn't going to be forgotten. Not in life, and certainly not in death. I had spent too many years giving, too many years sacrificing my time and energy for others, and now it was time to take care of myself. It wasn't about punishing anyone. It was about honoring my own worth. And as I walked out of that office, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Empowered. I had taken control. I had taken back my life, my dignity, and my legacy. The day came when I knew I couldn't wait any longer. It was time to face them, to let them know that I wasn't the same person they'd been taking for granted all these years. It wasn't something I wanted to do, but it was something I had to do. The silence in my house had been so loud, so heavy, but now there was a stillness inside me, peace, clarity, and maybe even a little bit of strength I didn't know I had. I called them together, my sons, my sisters, and a few of the grandchildren. I asked them to come over, said it was important. They came, unsure of what to expect. I could tell by the looks on their faces, the way they hesitated at the door. They knew something had changed, but I don't think they ever imagined what I was about to say. When they sat down, I could feel the tension in the room, and it wasn't the kind that comes from a loud argument or a shouting match. It was the kind of tension you feel when someone stops pretending, when they finally say what they've been holding inside for far too long. And I said it, calmly, without raising my voice, "I've changed my will." The room went quiet. You could feel their surprise, their confusion, their curiosity. But there was something else too. Guilt. I could see it in their eyes, the way they shifted uncomfortably in their seats. For a moment, no one said anything. It was as if they were all waiting for me to explain myself, to tell them I was just kidding. That it wasn't real. But I wasn't kidding. I wasn't backing down. I looked at each of them, one by one, and I said, "I'm not leaving it all to you. I won't be forgotten in life, and I won't be forgotten in death." There was a heaviness in the air, something that hung there like a cloud. They didn't know how to respond, didn't know what to say to that. My sons, the ones I had given everything to, the ones I had raised, they sat there, stunned, their faces frozen in disbelief. They had never expected this from me. But then, one of my sons, the oldest, the one who always thought he had the right to tell me what was best for me, tried to undermine what I had done. He leaned forward, almost like he was trying to convince me that I had made a mistake, that this wasn't necessary. "But you don't need it, Grandma," he said, his voice trying to soften, trying to make me doubt myself. "You've done enough. Why are you doing this?" In that moment, something inside me snapped. I wasn't angry. I wasn't frustrated. I was just done. I looked him straight in the eye and I said, "I'm not doing this for you, I'm doing it for me." They didn't know what to say to that. I wasn't asking for their approval anymore. I wasn't begging for their love or their attention. I had finally found my voice, and I was using it to protect myself. I had spent my whole life giving, always thinking it would come back to me in some way. But now I realize that sometimes you have to take a step back and ask, what do I deserve? I could see the guilt on their faces, the way they looked down or shifted their eyes. They were uncomfortable, and I let that discomfort sit there, because it was well-deserved. But even in that moment of discomfort, I wasn't backing down. I wasn't going to be silenced again. I wasn't going to let their selfishness define who I was. I didn't expect them to understand right away. I didn't expect them to suddenly see the error of their ways. But I knew something had changed in that room. I knew I had made a statement, one that couldn't be undone. They had taken me for granted for too long, and now I was showing them that I would no longer be the one who kept giving and giving until there was nothing left. They didn't speak for a while after that. The room was heavy, but it wasn't silent. It was the silence of truth, the kind that fills the space when someone finally speaks what has been left unsaid for too long. After the confrontation, I went home and locked the door. I changed the locks, rearranged the house. It was my home again. For the first time in a long time, I felt like the space around me was truly mine. Not just a place where I existed, but a place where I could breathe, where I could finally take back what was mine. The silence was no longer oppressive. It was a different kind of quiet now. It was peaceful, like a room filling with sunlight after a storm, the light breaking through the cracks, gently warming everything it touched. The walls that had once felt like they were closing in on me now felt like they were opening up, offering me a place to find myself again. I walked around, touching the old, familiar things, the quilts I had sewn, the framed pictures of days gone by, the chairs where they used to sit. I had been the one to fill this space with memories, and now it was time for me to fill it with peace. I rearranged things slowly, thoughtfully. Every movement felt like a reclaiming. Every step I took felt like I was finally putting myself back together. But it wasn't just the house that I was reclaiming. It was my life. I had spent so many years giving to everyone else, so many years making sure everyone around me was taken care of, that I had forgotten what it felt like to take care of myself. But now, that was changing. Now, I was learning to listen to myself, to honor myself, and to respect my own needs. Through all of this, Sarah stayed by my side. She wasn't just my granddaughter, she had become my ally in a way I hadn't expected. When everyone else had been too busy, too distracted, or too indifferent to notice me, she was the one who saw me. She was the one who cared, the one who gave me the strength to stand up for myself. Every time I felt myself waver, I could hear her voice in my head, reminding me of what I was worth. "You deserve this, Grandma," she'd tell me. "You've spent your life giving, and now it's time for you to give to yourself." Together, we began to rebuild my sense of self-worth, piece by piece. She'd come over and sit with me, chatting about life, asking how I was feeling. There was no rush, no pressure. Just a simple, quiet companionship. She wasn't trying to fix me, she was simply there, letting me be. And that, in itself, was healing. We spent days just talking, sharing memories, and laughing together. For the first time in a long time, I felt seen, I felt heard, and most importantly, I felt like I mattered. As I walked through my house with Sarah, rearranging things, sorting through old boxes, it was like I was sorting through my own heart. Each photo, each letter, each trinket was a piece of my life that I had given away without ever thinking about myself. But now, every one of those pieces was coming back to me. And as I held each one, I remembered who I was before I was a mother, before I was a grandmother, before I was a sister. I was someone with dreams, someone with a story to tell, someone who deserved to be heard. We didn't just clean the house that day. We were cleaning the corners of my heart. And as the dust settled and the house became brighter, so did my spirit. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was starting to live again. And it felt like the first breath of fresh air I'd had in years. Sarah's presence gave me something that I hadn't realized I'd been missing for so long. A reminder that I was worthy of love, of care, and of attention. It wasn't about what I had given to others. It was about what I had to offer myself. And in that moment, I knew I was on the path to reclaiming not just my home, but my life. I wasn't just someone who had given everything away. I was someone who could stand up and say, "I deserve this too." They came back. I don't know what made them finally show up at my door. Maybe it was the silence that stretched on too long. Maybe it was the guilt that finally caught up with them. But there they were, standing in front of me, looking like they had all the words in the world to say. They looked guilty, even ashamed, as if they were suddenly realizing what they had done. But I wasn't fooled. Not this time. They started with the apologies one by one. "We're sorry, Mom," my oldest son said, his voice low, almost like he was afraid of what I might say next. "We should have been there for you. We were wrong." And I could see the guilt in his eyes, the regret. But guilt is not the same as redemption. I didn't need an apology. I didn't need them to say they were sorry, not after everything that had happened. The damage had already been done. My youngest son, who always seemed to be the one who was too busy to care, finally stepped forward. "I know we've let you down, Mom," he said, his words more sincere this time. But there was something in his voice, something that didn't sit right with me. "We should have been there for you. We've been selfish, and we're sorry." The words were just that, words. They didn't have the weight they needed to hold meaning. They all gathered around, and they said the things they thought I wanted to hear, the things they thought would make it all go away. They asked for forgiveness, but it wasn't a moment of true redemption. It was too late for that. They were trying to patch up a broken bond with words that couldn't fix it. Words that couldn't undo the years of neglect, the silence, the abandonment. They didn't realize that asking for forgiveness wasn't enough. They had to show me they had changed, and they hadn't. "I hear you," I said, but I wasn't sure if I meant it. I didn't let my voice waver. I didn't let myself soften. They needed to know that I wasn't going to make it easy for them. I wasn't going to forgive them just because they finally realized they had made a mistake. I had given them so many chances before, and every time, they let me down. This time it was different. This time, I wasn't going to let them back in without earning it. "You don't just erase years of love with a few words," I told them, my voice steady, unwavering. I could see the hurt on their faces, the way their eyes filled with regret. But I wasn't moved. I couldn't be. I had given them everything, and I had nothing left to give. "It's not just about saying you're sorry," I continued. "It's about showing that you understand what you've done, what you've taken from me. You can't fix this with words. You can't take back the years you've ignored me, the years you've left me to sit alone in this house, waiting for someone to remember I'm here." They stood there, silent, and for the first time I could tell they were starting to understand. They could see the truth in my eyes. They could see that the distance between us wasn't something that could be bridged in one conversation. It wasn't something that could be healed with a simple apology. I didn't expect them to understand right away. I didn't expect them to suddenly be the family I had always wanted. But I had to stand my ground. I had to show them that I wasn't the same person I had been before, the one who just kept forgiving and forgetting. I wasn't that woman anymore. As they left, their heads low, I could hear the quiet remorse in their footsteps. They weren't just leaving my house, they were leaving me to think. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt, but I was tired. I was tired of being the one who always gave. I had learned, in my own way, that redemption isn't something you can give to someone else. It's something they have to earn, and it's something they have to prove over time. Maybe one day, they'll understand that. But for now, the only redemption I was interested in was my own. I had reclaimed my life, and I wasn't about to let them take that away from me. Betrayal can come from those closest to you. I know that now, in a way I didn't want to know. When it comes from your own family, the ones you've loved and cared for, it cuts deeper than any hurt you could imagine. But here's the thing. You don't have to let it break you. You don't have to let their actions define who you are or how you live your life. You can still choose your own path, even when the ones you loved leave you behind. I spent so many years thinking that if I just gave enough, if I just loved enough, they would see me. But sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes people take it for granted. And you find yourself left with nothing but the echoes of what you've given. That's when you have to stop. You have to stop giving to the point where you forget about yourself. And that's what I did. I stopped. I realized that protecting my peace was more important than begging for love from people who couldn't even see what they were taking. You don't need to beg for love. Sometimes, you just need to protect your peace and choose dignity. It's not easy, and it doesn't always feel fair. but it's the only way to move forward, to reclaim what's yours. Love isn't something you should have to chase. If it's real, it will find you. But if it's not, then it's okay to walk away. You deserve to have peace, to have respect, and to have a life where you are valued, not just for what you give, but for who you are. I'm grateful for each one of you who shared this moment with me, for listening to my story, for letting me speak my truth. It hasn't been easy, but it's been freeing. I want to hear from you too. I want to know if any part of this resonates with you. Have you ever been overlooked? Have you ever been left behind by the ones you loved most? Share your story with me. Share your truth. Because you are not alone in this. This is your space too. This porch light stays on for you, for anyone who has ever felt unseen, unheard, or forgotten. It's here for you. No one has the right to take your peace. If they've taken it, it's up to you to take it back. And you can. I've done it, and so can you. It doesn't matter how many times they've tried to pull you down or make you feel small. It doesn't matter how many words they've thrown at you, or how many actions they've taken to make you doubt your worth. You have the power to take your peace back, to reclaim your life, your strength, and your voice. I spent so many years thinking I had to prove my worth by giving, by always being there for everyone else, by letting their needs come before my own. But you know what? That's not what makes you valuable. Your value is not determined by what you give to others or how much you sacrifice for them. Your value is found in who you are, in your strength, in your resilience, in the way you show up for yourself. You have to be the first one to honor your own peace. You have to be the one who decides, enough is enough. There's power in that choice. There's strength in walking away from what doesn't serve you, from what doesn't respect you, from what only takes from you. It's not easy, and it's not quick, but it's possible. I've taken back my peace. I've learned to stand up for myself, and with every step I take, I feel stronger. I feel more whole. And I know, deep down, that I'm not going to let anyone take that away from me again. Take a moment and think about this. You are worthy of peace, of love, of respect. Don't let anyone, family, friends, anyone, make you believe otherwise. You don't need to beg for it. You don't need to fight for it. It's yours, simply because you are here, because you are you. And that's enough. So take it back. Take your peace, and never let anyone steal it again. You are more than enough, and you deserve a life filled with the love and respect you've always given, returned to you tenfold. And I promise you, when you start walking in your own strength, everything changes. It all starts with you. If you've ever felt alone or forgotten, I want you to know you're not the only one. I've been there, and I'm sure many of you have too. The feeling of being overlooked, of giving all you have only to be left standing in the silence. But you don't have to keep that silence inside you. If you've been hurt, if you've been neglected, I want you to share your story with us. This is a space for all the ones who feel unheard, for the ones who have been made to feel invisible. And trust me, you're not invisible here. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Share what you've been through, what you've learned. Let's all be a part of this community. A place where we lift each other up, where our stories are heard, and where we find strength in knowing we're not alone. It's not just about me, it's about all of us. This porch light stays on for you, for every soul who's ever felt dismissed, for every heart that's been bruised by the silence. If my story touched you, or if it reminded you of something inside yourself that you've been hiding for too long, then I invite you to subscribe. Stay with us. There are more stories to share, more truths to speak, and together we can find healing. I'm grateful for each one of you who has joined me today. You're not alone, and I'm here, always, waiting to hear your voice. Thank you for watching. More love from Granny.